Tonight on Reporting Scotland. Pressure grows on the Scottish Government to reverse a decision on a national awareness campaign for the condition sepsis.
The incidence of sepsis is still increasing, and also, frankly, tonight, tomorrow, next week, next month, there will be people dying because of their inaction.
The Health Minister says she will meet campaign groups to see what more can be done. Also on the programme, 53 years ago, the Queen opened the Forth Road Bridge. Today, she was back to give the Queensferry crossing the royal seal of approval. A labour of love, the contenders for the Scottish Party leadership each pay homage to Jeremy Corbyn. Would we recycle more plastic if we got money back for empties from a vending machine?
And I'm at Hampden as Scotland aim to keep up the recent good form and the World Cup hopes alive against Malta this evening.
Good evening. Pressure is growing on the Scottish Government over its decision to reject a call for a national campaign to raise awareness of sepsis. Lobbyists have described the decision as complacent and said ministers were putting lives at risk. Sepsis is caused when the immune system overreacts to infection. It kills around 44,000 people each year in the UK. Fiona Stalker reports.
This is Craig Stobo, his son Robert and his GP wife Fiona enjoying a precious family Christmas. 20 months later, that family picture was shattered. Craig was fighting for his life. Fiona was dead along with their unborn baby.
So essentially in the space of 62 hours, 1 week, 5 years ago, I nearly lost my own life. I lost my daughter and I lost my wife to sepsis. Fiona was perfectly fit, healthy, as was I. And it happened so quickly that it was profoundly shocking and bewildering and devastating.
If you experience sudden flu-like symptoms, it may be sepsis. If you're also affected by difficulty breathing, rapid heartbeat, mottled or discoloured skin, or slurred speech and confusion.
This hard-hitting video was made by the charity that Craig set up in his wife's name to raise public awareness. But the Scottish Government says it does not consider a public awareness campaign is necessary at this time.
Good progress has been made through the patient safety programme with a reduction in sepsis mortality of 21% since 2012, and a lot of work going on to make sure that that golden hour of treatment is taken and that the interventions that we know that can save lives happen within that hour. And of course we have worked with the trusts involved with raising awareness about sepsis to raise public awareness, but I'm happy to meet with the trusts to discuss whether we can do more.
This is inadequate. It's not acceptable at this stage to be complacent, and it's not acceptable for them to take this line when the incidence of sepsis is still increasing. And also, frankly, tonight, tomorrow, next week, next month, there will be people dying because of their inaction. It's a public health scandal.
See the expression in her face.
In April this year, BBC Scotland highlighted the case of Jim Robertson, who lost his wife Liz to sepsis. Now the Health Ombudsman's just upheld Jim's complaints against Greater Glasgow and Clyde Health Board for failures in his wife's treatment. They've issued an unreserved apology. And for Craig Stobo, the fight continues.
Every single life that we can save is a small victory, and I think that would be a fitting testament to Fiona's legacy.
Fiona Stalker, Reporting Scotland.
It's 53 years to the day since the Queen opened the Forth Road Bridge. Now, today, she gave the royal seal of approval to its new neighbour, describing the Queensferry crossing as breathtaking and an extraordinary achievement. Well, our reporter Stephen Godden is there for us tonight. Stephen.
Yes, Jackie, after a busy morning here at the Queensferry crossing, a period of relative calm. And the bridge behind me finds itself in a slightly curious position. On the one hand, it is still closed to traffic for another couple of days, but on the other, it is now officially open, having been given the royal seal of approval. Now, to witness that meant getting a bit wet. The weather hasn't been great here today, but thousands of people at both ends of the bridge were prepared to do exactly that, as for the second time in her life, the Queen cut the ribbon on a new bridge over the Forth. An occasion laced with historical symmetry. 53 years to the day after the Queen officially opened the Forth Road Bridge, she returned to do the same for the Queensferry crossing. Accompanied by the Duke of Edinburgh, the guest of honour was introduced to the welcome party. School children bridge workers, dignitaries.
This is a bridge that celebrates the skills of hand and heart and mind.
6 years of construction, all geared towards a moment marked in time-honoured fashion.
We've watched the bridge being built when we're local, and we've really enjoyed that, and we're really impressed by how beautiful it is, and it's just a lovely day of celebration to see it all come together.
It was really nice to be part of the opening of the bridge.
Yeah. It was unexpected, because we weren't expecting to get down here, so we were just delighted.
May this bridge bring prosperity and convenience to a great many people in the years ahead.
In 1964, the Queen's journey across the Forth towards Fife was shrouded in mist, the weather failing to observe a sense of occasion. Half a century on, rain but clear skies as the red arrows signalled it was time for the royal convoy to make the same journey. Waiting on the other side, 4,000 invited guests, making good use of their ponchos as the First Minister saluted those who fashioned the concrete and steel that now dominates the skyline.
On this day, 100 years from now, as a future generation gathers to mark its centenary, they will gaze at these towers and they will still marvel at what you have achieved. It is with enormous pleasure that I would like now to ask Your Majesty to officially open the Queensferry Crossing.
The Queensferry Crossing joins its iconic and historic neighbours to create not only a breathtaking sight over the Firth of Forth, but to provide an important link for so many in this community and the surrounding areas.
Then, one final act of ceremony to complete the formalities. The bridge officially open, but not yet carrying traffic. That task begins on Thursday. Well, every opportunity has been taken to show this bridge off, from the handover last week when the bridge was spectacularly lit up, through to the 2 days when it was open to traffic and then closed again to allow 50,000 people to walk across it over the weekend. Now tomorrow, local school children and community groups will be given that same chance to walk across it before it opens permanently overnight on Wednesday into Thursday. Now initially, restrictions will apply to traffic. It will be a few weeks yet before it works as it's supposed to, in tandem with the old bridge, public transport on the Forth Road Bridge, all other traffic on the Queensferry Crossing, an arrangement that's expected to last for decades.
Thank you very much, Stephen Godden there. A man has become the first to be convicted of new laws in Scotland relating to what's become known as revenge porn. Police say they're following a positive line of inquiry after an 8-year-old boy was knocked off his bike by a moped in Aberdeen. There are now 2 contenders to become the next Scottish Labour leader. Anas Sarwar has added his name to that of Richard Leonard. The job has been vacant since Kezia Dugdale told BBC Scotland last week that she was standing down. There are suggestions the contest will turn into a referendum on the UK party leadership of Jeremy Corbyn. This from our political editor, Brian Taylor.
The vacancy, Scottish Labour leader. Meet the applicants. On the left, Richard Leonard, an MSP since 2016, trade union organiser, a key supporter of Jeremy Corbyn. And his rival, Anas Sarwar, MSP, former MP and deputy leader, a dentist. Corbyn supporters, the left, are mostly cheering for Richard Leonard.
If we're honest with ourselves inside the Scottish Labour Party, we failed to recognise just what was going on. And I think we stuck to our original plans. I think, frankly, about halfway through the campaign, we should have understood better that kind of radical vision, frankly, Jeremy Corbyn's personality, was a vote winner.
Anas Sarwar initially criticised Jeremy Corbyn, but now backs him and says what counts is experience and energy to win in Scotland.
The best way that we can elect Jeremy Corbyn as the next Prime Minister, which I passionately want to do, is by making sure we have an effective, united Labour Party here in Scotland. I believe that our success in a UK election comes right through Scotland. We can no longer be the drag on the ticket.
Richard Leonard's parents sent him to private school in Yorkshire, but
I haven't sent my kids to private education, and so you can draw your own conclusions from that.
Anas Sarwar's dad is the former Labour MP Mohammed Sarwar. Anas Sarwar went to private school, as do his children. He says he's proud his family prospered in Scotland.
My family's been rooted in Labour values, but those Labour values we need for every family to prosper right across Scotland and the UK. I will never ever apologise for that or be ashamed of that.
The candidates, the contest. Labour members, affiliates and registered supporters will choose.
Well, Brian's here to talk about that contest. Now, there's a meeting on Saturday, I understand, Brian, that will decide on who can vote and the timetable. Yeah. But that is not without its own controversy.
No, it's not. I mean, it's a choice. There's a cut-off point at which you say, right, that's the membership plus these registered supporters, affiliates in the unions, etc. You say, right, there's a day. On that day, we declare that to be the electorate who will decide the next Labour leader. Now, there's a balance to be struck between, on the one hand, using it, frankly, as a recruiting tool to get folk in, to get them engaged and energised in the party. On the other hand, are you bringing in people who are only joining to affect the leadership contest rather than showing a genuine affinity to the Labour Party? And I understand that both sides are saying they're pretty relaxed about this. They're on the side of trying to get folk in. They're relaxed about the idea of allowing an opportunity for new members and particularly new registered supporters to come in, which would seem to point to a slightly more relaxed timescale. But we'll know on Saturday after the Scottish Executive meets.
And two contenders so far. Anyone else likely to join them?
I don't think so, Jackie. I mean, others have taken a real serious look at it. But you have now two contenders who they don't have a lot of experience at Holyrood, but they have a lot of experience in the Labour movement and in wider politics. And so you have, if you like, a real serious contest going on to replace Kezia Dugdale. I think that is the shape of the contest that will be in that offer to the Labour members, affiliates and registered supporters to decide.
Brian Taylor, thank you very much. Now, for those of us who enhanced our pocket money by collecting empty glass bottles, there could be a sense of déjà vu. This time, a deposit return scheme for plastic bottles and cans is under serious consideration in Scotland. It sounds like the stuff of science fiction, but researchers in Edinburgh have developed a camera that can see through the human body. The Royal Navy's new air missile defence system has been successfully tested off the Outer Hebrides. The Sea Sceptre missiles were fired from HMS Argyll, a Type 23 frigate. The weapons can intercept and destroy enemy missiles travelling at supersonic speeds and will form part of the protection for the Navy's new aircraft carriers. Inverness Airport has experienced its longest sustained period of growth in its 77-year history. 9 landlords in the Govan Hill area of Glasgow have been struck off a landlord register after being found unfit to rent out property. Sport now, and Scotland are back in action tonight, this time against Malta in their latest World Cup qualifier. £5 million is to be made available to help young disabled people make the transition from children's services to adult ones. As Ian Hamilton reports, the money is aimed at helping them with things like training or even independent travel.
Ryan's a Special Olympian and he's on the autistic spectrum. Because of his disability, he can find it very hard to read a social situation, but can sometimes put him in danger. He can see how extra cash could make him more independent.
I would invest my ILF money in things such as self-defence classes, because they would not only help build up my confidence levels, but also build up my mental confidence. It's a great step for your physical strength, because the way you walk in the streets is often how people will perceive you.
Many young disabled people like Ryan can find it hard moving from children's to adult services. Support they would have received while in education is harder to access once they leave. A new £5 million independent living fund from the Scottish Government hopes to help bridge that gap.
We've opened up ILF to particularly young people, 16 to 21-year-olds, with a new fund to help those young disabled people at a key transition point in their lives. And the new fund, the £5 million fund, will be administered by the ILF programme across Scotland and will work with those young disabled people to give them the additional support that they need to move into independent living.
In order to be eligible for this new scheme, applicants must be resident in Scotland, be aged 16 to 21, have evidence of a disability or impairment as defined under the 2010 Equality Act.
Up the arms a bit more.
The first phase will be rolled out by Christmas, administered by Independent Living Fund Scotland. and is aimed specifically at young disabled people. But if successful, it could be rolled out to older applicants. Ian Hamilton, reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
Well, not a great start to September's weather. Here's Judith to tell us it's going to be wonderful.
Saturday was nice, remember?
And now a reminder of tonight's main news. The American ambassador to the United Nations has urged the UN Security Council to take the strongest possible measures against North Korea in response to its most powerful nuclear test. Nikki Haley told an emergency session that North Korea was begging for war. Pressure is growing on the Scottish Government over its decision to reject a call for a national campaign to raise awareness of sepsis, which is caused when the immune system overreacts to infection. The condition kills around 44,000 people every year in the UK. And that's Reporting Scotland. Join me for the next main bulletin, 10:25, if you can. Until then, from all the team, good night.